Welcome to this 2D UFO game. Now, this game is going to be our first real game made in Unity, and it's going to be very similar to the one that we created in Apps 11, if you took Apps 11 with me, when we made the rollerball. The big difference here is going to be that we're just dealing with 2D assets and 2D gameplay, whereas the one we made in Apps 11 dealt with 3D objects and in a 3D environment. Now, why are we going to use 2D? There are two reasons. First being that it's a bit easier when you program in a 2D environment. You're only dealing with X and Y coordinates, and so the programming is a little bit easier. And the second thing is that in terms of creating your own art assets, creating 2D art is much simpler than creating 3D art. If you probably realize from last year, being able to create things as models that actually work well in a game can be very, very difficult. And then when you want to be able to texture them, that adds another layer of difficulty there. Whereas with 2D art, simply grabbing Photoshop and or say Illustrator, much easier to do. So when you want to come and sort of take what we've learned here in the games that we're going to create and then say produce your own game, you'll find that making it in 2D, you could probably get something that really more closely matches your sort of imagination than you would say trying to recreate everything in 3D. All right. Now, so this game here, just give you a little bit of a preview, but like I said, very similar to Rollerball. So this is the completed game here. And so as you can see, there's just a background. Okay. So we've got just an art object. And obviously, as we move our character around, which is our middle one, okay, I'm just using the arrow keys. And if I collide with something, you can see that these rotating nuggets, or whatever you want to think of them as, get picked up by the UFO. So again, very much like the rollerball. And this sort of darker gray on the outside indicates sort of the barrier. So as I work my way around, you can see the keyboard here is making sounds. You can see that it's sort of picking things up. And I've lost my other key there. I think it's more of my keyboard I've got an issue with here. I'm no longer able to move to the left. So I'll click off. It should not be affecting. It seems to be moving the wrong way. Okay, there we go. So as I move my character around, I can collect, and we get this U win at the end. So again, very, very similar to the rollerball if you've done that one. If you haven't, well, this will introduce all the basic concepts that we need to introduce and bring you sort of up to speed there. All right, so let's just sort of close this up for the moment and just sort of run through a little bit about what's going on here, and then we'll get into programming the game in the next video here. So if you're new to Unity, there's a variety of ways of setting this up. I've just got this set up here. Generally, I use my 2x3 layout. And so up here is your layouts, and I like to drag this hierarchy menu just down here. Give myself a little bit more room. Okay, so now I'll go over this again in the other videos, but just sort of to give you an idea. So this is your scene window, and so this is basically where you'd want to work, where you want to drag objects or assets into your game, and gives you an idea of what you're sort of working with here. Below is your game window, and this actually shows you what the player would see. So there is a camera that will, and this bar here is sort of indicating the view of the camera. You can set the camera up so that it can see, the game board. And depending on what you want to do, zoom it in, zoom it out, okay, you can control the position of the camera. Over on this left side, or sort of the right side here, sort of in the center, if I drag this out, this is your project folder. And really, this is everything in your game. And that differs with the hierarchy folder down here. Now, what's in here can be included in your assets as well. This is what's specifically in the scene. And so we haven't actually saved this scene yet. And I'll talk about that when we start making the game and stuff. But basically, a scene, you can sort of equate it to a level. Oh, great. So what we've got in this scene might be, the first level of our game. And that might be when I give you the opportunity to make some modifications, you might want to go in and change the art around. And I'll show you how to do that pretty easily. And then sort of create your own little maze game or whatever you want to do. So in this one here, if I sort of click on it, you can see the background, okay? And that sort of brings up a variety of things in this, what's called the inspector here. So the background is in the game, and it's sort of indicated by that green arrow there, okay? And actually, in fact, those are the box colliders there. So this object is made up of the sprite renderer, okay? First of all, it has a position, and it has a sprite renderer, so that's actually the graphic that's being shown up. And because it's just a 2D sprite, it doesn't actually have any boundaries or whatever. We've included these 2D box colliders, and we've included, as you can see, 4 of them to sort of do the 4 sides of this object. All right, and then you got your main camera, which is what we're sort of viewing here. You can't really see it at the moment. If I zoom out, it still doesn't really show, but it does have a position. And so if I move the camera back, say just move this one back here, make it -20. Actually, it doesn't affect anything here. Let me just drag this way. You can see it moving left and right. Forgot because we're in 2D, it doesn't really affect. Okay, you can sort of center it or whatever. This obviously doesn't matter. A Y would be up and down here. And like I said, because we're only in 2D, the Z dimension doesn't matter. Of course, when I do that, it does. And there we go. So it has to be at a certain point, but we're okay there. All right. Then you got your player, right? You can see that again. It's got a few things on it: sprite render, rigid body. This is the controller script to actually get it to move, and we'll talk more about scripts. And then it's got a circle collider on it. Now the difference there, I mean, obviously it needs a collider to detect its edges, but this rigid body idea here is that this is what's going to give it the physics. So you can see it's got a few physics-like things here. You might notice mass, right? And drag, okay, and how much gravity is affecting it. So these things here can influence how these things move, and we'll be accessing the rigid body through the script. And I won't go look at the script at all at the moment. When we get there, we'll discuss it more in detail. There's an empty here that includes all the pickups. So you can see down here, this arrow will open it up, and there's all your pickups. And they're blue for a reason, and we'll talk about that. They're being prefabs, okay? So each of these objects is actually the same. They've just been arranged in a different location. You can see here that all that changes between them is the X and Y location. They've got rigid body in as well, because they're going to be they're moving around as well. And there is a script on it as well to rotate them. The last little bit in this game here is the canvas, which is a way of sort of doing the UI, so the user interface. And part of that user interface includes, like it says here, the count text. So, how many you've got left or how many you've picked up, one of the two. And then, of course, your win text, which shows up here when you've won the game. And when you create that canvas, this event system is brought in. It doesn't really, you don't really have to worry too much about it, but it just sort of comes in when we create this canvas. So that's, sort of the basic part of the game here. Like I said, up here, your assets, this is everything in your game, okay? And so you'll get something similar to this. I'll give you your sprites, okay? So there's our sprites that we're going to deal with. And like I said, these are very, very simple objects created in either Photoshop or Illustrator, probably Illustrator in terms of these graphics for sure. And I'll show you how to be able to do that. If I double click on it, usually it opens up, like I say, it's a PNG, and it's showing up just in my Windows picture viewer here. All right, so I think that's all we need to really discuss here, because we want to actually get making the game. So when we come back in our next video, we'll actually get sort of the assets into the game, start putting our board together, and get it to look more like a game. All right, we'll see you in the next video.